how do you subdue a spirit or a ghost? Or...
You have to, every haunting, every manifestation is different. I mean, if the worst ones, you can use holy water and slowly drive them back towards a specific entrance. You can actually incarcerate them, you can imprison them. You can then put salt out, because I don't want to go into details over radio in case anybody tries to do-it-yourself kind of job. We have consecrated tools, consecrated swords, which have been power charged. We have certain other ritual implements which are power charged. And basically then you have to make barriers of salt, holy water, which we create holy water ourselves with our own specific working ways. And the holy water is created, and you spring, and eventually you drive the entity toward a section by which you think you can banish it into what we call the ether, or send it back from whence it came. But each case is different. There is no set routine. You have to judge each one accordingly.
So you think there's not a logical sort of apparition?
Oh no, you see, there are different types of apparition. Poltergeists are nothing more than balls of energy. They're just literally energy, throw things around, make a lot of noise, tremendous fracas. But they're not usually sort of spirit forces, they're an energy force. And you will always find that when you have a poltergeist activity, there is always a child going through the pangs of puberty, an 11-year-old girl, an 11-year-old boy in prepubescence. It's always associated. There's one of, you can always say, is this a genuine one? You've got to look for an undeveloped mind. And you find the undeveloped mind or an undeveloped body of a child, that is where the harness is upon that child, usually between the ages of 10 to 12.
Do you find that quite often? Though?
Quite often. No, not too often, every time. It's an absolute infallible rule for poltergeists. As far as this, as ordinary hauntings and spirits are concerned, they are disembodied spirits who are earthbound. Sometimes they make it quite clear, we don't want to pass over, we don't want to go on. If they do want to go on, then we will help them over to the other side. But many, many times they're quite happy to remain on earth, and have probably made themselves not exactly a nuisance of themselves. They've attached themselves to a house, because you get an example, a dear old lady, she's born into a house, her mother dies, she inherits the house, she gets married, her husband lives, and she dies at the age of 98, and she spent her entire life in a little cottage, or a little terrace. And when she passes over, she doesn't leave that little cottage. Then she suddenly realized, in comes a young couple, and they put different decor. They ripped a lovely stove out that she loved, this wooden filed one. They put a new range on. They've decorated it in colour she doesn't like, and she gets resentful. These are people, intruders in my house, and she makes it felt, but she's not harmful. Eventually you placate her, and 9 times out of 10 you must get the couple to live with it and accept her. And but if you get people very scary, who really hate manifestations, it's a different ballgame. Right. But then you'd have to try and persuade them to pass on from that point.
So what's the most sort of scary sort of exorcism you've ever done?
Well, I think, quite honestly, I say the Shoren one was one of the scariest ones there. The worst one I ever had was at something, and that is so complex to go into details, it would take ages. But there was the worst one I think I ever experienced was at something, and that was pure evil there. But most of them are fairly straightforward. It's very rare. Mind you, something is one of the few areas where black magic is practiced as well in Sussex. We find there's a lot of talk of black magic, and 9 times out of 10 it's completely and utterly false. It's just people playing with the occult and playing wrongly. But there has always been one group in the something area who have been evil, and there's been a great deal of phenomena has centered around that particular location.
So you're saying that places that are where people have practiced sort of ritual,
have like a dark emanation around that area. Yes,
is that an energy then?
It is a latent energy that adheres to that.
Right.
I mean, there's an area in something which, I mean, is bound in, but you might say, you could say the ground is soaked in blood. There's a small section there where I think that the Romans massacred the Celts, and then prisoners were, the Danes raided it and burned it and slaughtered everybody, and the Vikings slaughtered it. You know, it's got bad history of bad vibrations all around there.
So have you actually seen a ghost?
We've seen more than one, yes, many over the years.
Right, and what do they look like?
Strangely enough, the average ghost the average was using the word ghost in a light-hearted way, probably looks quite ordinary. It's not a see-through character or somebody walking along with its head tucked underneath its arm. They often appear as quite ordinary people. Quite ordinary people. We had the experience only a few weeks ago coming back from Crawley Down, and we passed a man standing by the side of the road, very grey man, and as I passed him I just instinctively knew he was a ghost, and my wife says it's a bad habit I have of giving hitchhikers a lift, and it looked like the man wanted a lift, and I didn't slow down, I drove straight on, and my wife said, thank God for that, I thought you were going to pick him up. She said, there was something about that. She said, was that a ghost? I said, absolutely certain that it was a ghost. Well, in the Fort military, Fort New Haven military display team I belong to, one of the soldiers in the team, in actual fact, lives in that area. And I mentioned to him in passing, and he said, oh no, he said, that's a well-known phenomenon. He stands there, he said, most people boycott it at night time. So we then knew it was a manifestation. But they quite often look like quite ordinary people. There's none of this ghosty stuff jumping out and taking boo and things like that. It doesn't happen.
With Ouija boards, is that a way that people sort of end up manifesting ghosts?
I'd like to take this broadcast as a platform to say, for God's sake, whatever you do not ever touch a Ouija board. A Ouija board is one of the few things that will conjure up an evil entity. It can appear to you as something very, very benign, be very friendly, give you a lot of good information, and wheedle its way into you. They are very, very dangerous. I cannot emphasize the dangers of the Ouija board. Do not touch them. We've all burned our fingers with them. In a learning curve when I was a young man, do not touch them. I would like to emphasize, if you want to conjure up evil entities that will influence you and influence your life, then touch a Ouija board.
Right, right.
They are inherently evil.
So have you had experiences of Ouija boards then when you were younger?
Lots of times when I've been called into manifestations, it's all started with somebody playing with a Ouija board. I cannot emphasize it enough.
And how does it affect people then?
Usually by giving false information. They start off and they will tell you things that are probably only known to yourself and your parents and your immediate family. And then they will start sort of feeding you information. I mean, let's take a hypothetical case and saying, you know your brother's having an affair with your wife, you know, don't you? And things like this. And start sowing evil into a person's head. They cause disruption, they cause mayhem. Do not listen to what anything spells out. And a lot of stuff also on Ouija boards is nothing more than somebody, particularly twisted person, pushing the glass around. But if you get the glass raised up by itself and moves around, you have actually brought something into the house. If you're touching it, if you're touching a glass on a Ouija board, then the whole process is suspect. But if you see the glass raises up and starts going without any physical activity, nobody's touching it, you have conjured something, and now you have trouble.
So you've, in your experience as an exorcist, you've seen objects actually lifting off the ground and moving?
Oh yes, I mean, one of my studies in actual fact, I mean, I think the 3 studies I did was particularly telepathy, teleportation and telekinesis. And telekinetic manifestation by mind power moving things is part of the study also of ritual magic. But it's certainly when you find that force is unleashed, when the force is unleashed, then things will move of their own accord. Often, long after you've ceased the actual ritual, you'll find things where people, in ritual magic, if it's not grounded, the energy is still in the air and things will still move around.
Right, right. Have you ever been sort of followed by a spirit that you've actually tried exorcising from a building?
No, nothing like that. No, the only spirit I think we've ever had sort of attach itself to us was when we lived in Reading. and we had a very benign presence that absolutely adored children. And when we moved house, it came with us, and everywhere we came, it attached itself to us. But it's very, very benign.